okay, I've got significant number of grades just out of gains in flexibility, not through strength or fitness. And it's very rewarding.
That's mind-boggling to me. Obviously, you just experienced it, so it's very fresh in your mind. But you're saying grades, like plural grades,
Mm-hmm.
simply from flexibility and mobility. And just to play the skeptic for a second, is do you feel that's unique to a certain style of climbing? So when you're doing these wild, super hard cutting edge cracks where you got to throw your legs over your head and get your feet into the crack to then come around and then like Adamandra upside down on silence or something like that, or really cutting edge slabs like you were doing with Anna where it's super high steps and you got to keep your hips into the wall.
The biggest area, number one, kind of that went on the list, and I went, yeah, that's just too much. I can't stand that. Is indoor climbing and bouldering. That was
Huh.
the primary effect for me, just
Wow.
because you're climbing right at your limit, especially with indoor setting. It's very creative in style. You have to explore the end ranges of movement a lot, and also a lot of a blend of both upper and lower body flexibility required in it. And then the next down the line was the slab climbing. I will, acknowledge that slab climbing is very dependent on flexibility. So that was the kind of next one where I felt, yeah, that's quite a big effect. And then after that, I'd say standard sport climbing was the next down the list. But
Right.
crack climbing, way, way down at the bottom.
Looking at all the data that you've collected, all the athletes that you've worked with at Lattice, covering all different levels of climbing ability, what seem to be the deficiencies? Where is there the most opportunity with regard to flexibility and mobility?
The number one area that the majority of climbers want to look at and concentrate on is the external rotation of the hip joint. So think of that as the ability to be able to frog wide on the wall, step wide, stem, and high step in a relatively wide position. That is the biggest limiting factor or effect that you can have in terms of flexibility of the body. It's not internal rotation. So internal rotation would be more around your drop knee moves or your Egyptians. Most
Right.
definitely external rotation of the hip joint.
All right, y'all, just a quick 30 seconds here to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Frictitious Climbing. Y'all, check out this thing that they invented here. This is so rad. It's a doorway mount for your hangboard. No screwing, no drilling, no punching holes in your walls. If you travel a lot, this thing's amazing. You can put any hangboard you own onto this thing, or you can score one of their rad hangboards for 20% off, hitting that link below. It can come pre-mounted like mine did. So I popped it out of the box, I mounted it on the doorway, no mess, no fuss, and boom, you're hanging your tendons in minutes. I love this thing.
So just and on that external rotation, you're saying that not only is that the most common deficiency, but there lies a huge opportunity for us to level up our grades without getting an ounce stronger in our fingers if we are able to just add how much more range, or what do you think that practically looks like for us climbers who haven't been working to open up the kind of that hip mobility?
Oh, it's pretty hard to put a number on it, but I would say more or less a sort of a very basic, I suppose, test that you could maybe do at home is that as either male or female climber, is that you want to be able to do a wide side split position somewhere approaching 100% of your own height in the width from heel to heel if you're in a stood position. So around your own height is a good marker of adequate flexibility in that particular plane of motion or flexibility. Getting to equivalent is a really good benchmark to get to. In the same way that we say, for example, max 2-rep pull-up is 150%. It's the point where I will say to most climbers, is not something that you need to continually work on here as a big focus. It's just a really nice gold standard benchmark to aim for.
Sure.
And that's one, but I would say it's not the most important one, because box split has some relevance into climbing, but I think a more relevant movement is one where you're in a frogging position in front of the wall. So imagine this is where you are standing front onto a wall and you turn your heels into the wall, in towards the wall. So the insides of your big toe are touching the wall and the heels are touching to the wall. And the insides of your knees are spread out as far as you can. And ideally, you want to be able to get completely flat with the wall in front of you so that your chest and your hips are touching the wall, but your heels are around perhaps 1 meter apart on the floor next to the wall. So if you have that kind of level of flexibility where you can get those heels around 1 meter apart, but still get completely perfect flat to the wall, that's another very basic benchmark that people can go, oh yeah, I'm not terrible at this, and I've got some degree of decent flexibility in my hips for external rotation.
Yeah, well, I'm for sure not to that point, as I've just recently tried some of these things. And so what Roz has programmed for me is, anywhere between usually 5 and 7 days a week of what is called like morning mobility. And so there are like frog splits in there. I'm doing those on the floor where I'm kind of like, in like a prone position, hands and knees on the floor. And then I'm spreading my knees and my feet out as far as I can go. And then there's a bunch of other, what I like about that is like the entire morning routine is like 11 minutes. And, there's Jefferson curls and there's some quad stuff and some, various things with kind of like hamstrings and I don't know the names of all of them, but it's like a routine that I go through and it takes like 11 minutes. I do it after I wake up before I start my day, and I kind of like that. But then there's midday dynamics where I'm doing a lot of stuff with my hips where I'm like swinging my leg kind of back and forth or, side to side and these kinds of things, which I'm assuming has a different benefit than just like a static stretch. And then there's a separate day or maybe sometimes 2 days of more focused stretching that might take 45 minutes where I'm doing longer holds in positions, maybe anywhere up to 1.5 minutes in a position and doing a few sets of those. Those tend to be the real grind for me, is like I can get away with these 10-minute chunks when I'm on like a conference call, but to like focus for 45 minutes on some of these, more grueling holds is tougher for me. Although I think this chat with you maybe will help to keep it a little bit more motivating, because it's going to be a heck of a lot easier for me to, maybe it sounds like, pick up a grade by getting a little bit more mobile than it is to adding finger strength, as I think it takes a long time to add finger strength.